for total capacity, so still well over 100%. We're still keeping an eye on the potential for some flooding. Flash flood warning still in effect through 4:15 tomorrow afternoon for the areas highlighted in red. I'm going to point out some of the key areas. That includes Gridley, East Biggs, Palermo, Oroville, Thermalina, highlighted in red. We're going to point out some of the key areas. That includes Gridley. We just have a whole nother system working its way through. So here's Oroville, here's the Feather River, there's the dam. All of this water is going to be quickly moving its way through from the dam down the river. And as it works its way in, it's going to look for the lowest possible spot, and that's where the water is going to go. So quickly things are going to spread out from there. That's where the majority of our flooding will start. But then it's going to creep as the water continues to flow. It's 1,000 cubic feet per second is what we're seeing the outflows right now. But we're also still seeing some snow melt. We mentioned earlier with the nice weather we've had today, that continues going into tomorrow. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on this potential. We're not the only ones, though. The entire North State is looking for that potential for flooding. We have an overall small stream flood warning still in effect through 9:15 Monday. And then all eyes will go back to that as we head with that next system by Wednesday. So quick update with our threat tracker, still in the medium category for tomorrow because of the river levels being very high. By Tuesday, we'll continue to see those start to drop. We'll keep an eye on if we need to bump that up or not. But then Wednesday, even though we're low right now, by Wednesday night, that's the time framing of the next system, and that's going to bring a lot more rainfall back into the North State, not only for the valley, but the mountains as well. Jerry, Brent?
If I could ask Jeremy a question, and I don't want to play stump the weather forecaster, that's not my intent, but is there a way that you could look at things and say, okay, given the snow melt and given the amount of rain that's expected, what that could do to add to the dam? I know that's many people's questions, but that might be a difficult one to answer. So again, I don't want to play stump the forecaster, but give it a shot.
No, and that one is, there's a lot of factors that do play into that, Jerry, and what we could be seeing is several inches potentially working its way in with that snow melt. If you look at the water equivalent from the station index across the Sierra, there's a lot of water there. And it may take a while for that to gradually be melting and work its way through. So very tough question. A lot of math and a lot of science behind that. That's, of course, one of the factors that the Department of Water Resources is definitely looking into right now as they project forward with this next system to find out how much more room that they need so this doesn't happen again.
That is hope for the best.
Wow, something else. At least 130,000 people have been asked to evacuate over concerns about the dam's emergency spillway. That includes folks from, of course, Oroville, Gridley, Live Oak, Marysville, Wheatland, Yuba City, Plumas Lake, and Olivehurst, all under evacuation orders. And Jerry, we were talking about this earlier. I think one of the biggest concerns right now, and again, not knowing this part of the preparation picture, they told us as a group that people please be prepared, but there is some confusion over what is open and what isn't as a place for people to go and when they're leaving, and that's been a bit of an issue. For example, we just saw that apparently Tehama County Fairgrounds are not being opened at this time as an emergency shelter. That doesn't mean it couldn't possibly happen, but folks just need to know where to go.
And I know the best, we've been, when we first went on the air about 4 hours ago, we had like a list of evacuation centers. We had like 2 or 3. The number has grown so large that the best thing we would advise you to do is go to krcrtv.com. We have a list of them there because it seems to be fluctuating. Okay, go ahead.
Fantastic. These are live pictures from Fox 40 in Sacramento that are going, that we're looking at right now. So that's some of, I'm guessing, some of the boulders and things that they're trying to drop in by helicopter. See the big bags? They're going to put those boulders and sand in those bags. They will drop those from helicopters into the spillway area to try to direct water to reduce erosion in whatever areas they can, and I guess this works, I guess.
I was at that exact location on Friday, I believe, if the memory serves right. That picture, and just to the left, I believe, is where you'll find some helicopters. Now, as the crow flies, that spot right there is probably a mile and a half from where the spillway is located. Yeah, and I think you're right. That is apparently what they're going to do to try to get that water diverted and try to have it go into a certain direction. It's fascinating. If it wasn't such a tragedy, and if so many lives weren't affected, there is so many things in this, Brent, that is so interesting to see how these men and women do their jobs and do it just on a moment's notice, under extreme pressure with lives at stake. It's amazing to watch. It's just a shame that we have to watch. It would be so much better if this was just like something, a made-for-TV event.
Right.
The fact that their real lives being affected. And you talked about how many people evacuated?
130,000 estimated right now have been asked to evacuate, and we could, who knows, we could see more. But as we saw from Jeremy, the area where the water will fan out, to not knowing the future. I think to your point, the way that other municipalities in the North State, the way that Shasta County immediately, there were emergency vehicles coming down to assist, the way everyone, we've seen other counties opening up, we've seen churches, we've seen neighbors saying, hey, I've got room on my property, posting it on Facebook for people to go. And so far we have no reports of injuries, and that's the best thing to hear.
It's so great, Brett, because what you do is you see so many people have different skill sets to bring to a story like this, to bring to an event. These men and women, they have certain abilities. The people over at the, caring for people in need over with the American Red Cross, everybody rallying around and doing what they do best to try to make the situation, better for everybody else. But I guess what still is going to be the big question is, how long is the city of Oroville going to be closed up?
Yeah.
I mean, basically, Oroville and other cities are going to be out of business for a while because nobody's going to be allowed to go back in for a certain period of time.
And we are hearing, Jerry, if you want to let know, this is from Fox 40. We are hearing from them. They're reporting that the jail is being evacuated. We don't have more details, and you were discussing that just a moment ago.
Right. And that's probably going to close up because that's right next to the courthouse. It's next to the district attorney's office. It's over on County Center Road. So I would imagine all of the office buildings, and this isn't confirmed yet, but if they're pulling people out of the jail, which is a little bit lower than some of the, I will grant you that the jail is on lower ground than where the district attorney's office is and some of the county office buildings are. They're up higher. It'll be interesting to find out whether or not they're going to decide to actually close those as well. But I would say the elevation is higher. They're on a slight hill, but the jail is down in a lower, I guess, gully. I guess the word that comes to mind, a little lower. So perhaps that's why it was necessary.
And again, we're looking at that earlier was live. Now, this is earlier today, footage from a helicopter of cars leaving, getting out of Oroville. And you saw, if you've just joined us, and I went hiking today, Jerry, but fortunately I still got my alert while I was out at Whiskeytown. But if you've just joined us, and Jerry has been here throughout all of this, shortly after 4 o'clock, I guess, we got the word there was going to be an emergency evacuation. And I will say the spillway is working. I used the word saying there was a spillway failure. That was not accurate, but it is a very endangered spillway. It's taking all it can, and I think it's fair to say that it's being pushed to its limits.
When we first got this, we actually we took an extra time before we actually put it what we call a lower third crawl, which is what you see underneath the screen announcing it, because we hear so much about people pulling pranks, fake news. Let's send something out. And so we actually called a couple of people to make sure to get this verified that this wasn't a fake email. Because, because in a sense, it was almost hard to believe. Especially considering that we'd heard that this was probably not going to happen, that it actually did. And then at the bottom of the statement, it said, this is an evacuation order, the first thing, and this came from the Department of Water Resources, and then it made the announcement, which we've been repeating throughout the evening, and that they were going to increase water releases to 100,000 cubic feet per second, etc. And then at the very bottom, this is not, in all caps, N-O-T in all caps, a drill. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. And it was still kind of almost hard to believe. It was like, we better make sure that this has actually happened, that this isn't a prank. And unfortunately, it's not a prank, and this is actually happening now.
Because that was, 34, or I'm doing my math, maybe 34 hours since the water first began going over on Saturday morning. It was 8 o'clock or in that area, wasn't it?
And so you have an hour to get out. Right after getting off the phone with my mom, I actually received a phone call from the Be Prepared Yuba County office because I signed up for alerts through them. They called to give us an immediate evacuation mandatory. You have an hour to get out. So we packed up as fast as we can, all of our animals and my baby, and we head up the hill to Loma Rica.
Hey, Lindsay, how long did it take you to get out? Did it take you a while?
I was fortunate enough to where we had everything already packed and ready to go. So getting out of town was really quick. I live right between Highway 70 and Highway 20. We were originally going to go to Davis, but going towards Highway 70, it was already jam-packed bumper to bumper and stopped through the high school all the way down into Marysville. And so I said, nope, not going that way. And we turned around and we went up 20, and we were one of the first lines of cars to get out that we still had really good movement. All behind me, it was starting to get jam-packed, and nobody was able to get out as quickly as they needed to, or they wanted to at least.
Okay, Lindsay. I'm just wondering if, right now, as you got into your area, were you seeing cars that for a long time were stopped there and trying with emergency services, like with their help? We saw in some areas there were some police trying to direct traffic, but were you seeing that as well?
I didn't get to see them, but I did hear their sirens. They were they were on 70, more towards the middle of town, and I live kind of up towards the north end. So they were out, and I heard all of their sirens go as soon as I got their emergency service to get out, and that's where all Highway 70 was just completely jam-packed, and you couldn't, there was no movement.
Lindsay, thank you so much for sharing, and glad that you got out safe and that you and your family are doing okay.
Thank you.
All right, we want to go out to the Oroville Dam right now. Our Ben DC is standing by. Ben, what's the latest from there?
Yeah, Nikki, work continues at a furious pace on this airlift plan the Department of Water Resources has talked to us about. And I'm going to step out of the way and let you take a look for yourselves live behind me. You see massive piles of massive boulders there on the pavement. This is the parking lot above the dam itself. You can see those boulders are being packed into these white bags, of sort of a nylon material, white bags. These boulders, we understand, will be attached then to the belly of an aircraft, a helicopter. That helicopter will then fly them to a location where they are needed in the area of the auxiliary spillway at the dam itself. And I want to walk you over and show you the dam that is now just off to our left. And you can see at the far end a set of emergency lights have been set up. That is to monitor both the spillway and the auxiliary or emergency spillway that have been flooding out water here all day long. That emergency spillway, the cause for concern. Water has begun to erode that spillway at a pace, again, never been used before, that spillway, so it was very difficult to predict what might happen when Lake Oroville got high enough that the water started tipping over and coming down that emergency spillway. That did begin to happen, and that water is having an effect that was not planned for, certainly not an effect the Department of Water Resources and the infrastructure folks out here wanted. It's begun to erode that bank, and that's why the plan to use the boulders has been put into place. Now, we did see a helicopter circling that area at very low levels maybe half an hour or so ago now, but we haven't seen any activity in the air since that time. However, the activity here up on the parking lot above the dam, well, that's happening at a more and more furious pace. As you can see, more and more bags of boulders are being loaded, and more trucks are bringing those boulders in, dumping them out right here on the parking lot, and work crews are again loading them into those enormous bags and positioning them so they can be attached to the bottom of a helicopter should they go ahead with that plan. Here's another truck coming in right now live behind us, likely going to dump another huge load of these boulders that will then be loaded into those white bags. Those white bags will be positioned where they can be attached to the belly of an aircraft, a helicopter, and taken to where the erosion is worse and most concerning for the Department of Water Resources. We are continuing to monitor that process. There are dozens and dozens of bags now loaded, and they continue to be loaded here above the Oroville Dam, but so far we haven't seen any of them lift off. We are waiting for that. We are told that is likely to happen very soon. Reporting live from Oroville, Ben DC with Fox 40 News.
Ben, thanks so much. I want to give you an update now. We've been talking about how resources from across the state, Southern California, coming up to help. We now know that the Stockton Fire Water Rescue Task Force is actually headed to Oroville to help out with the efforts there.
Okay, and in that evacuation area, and again, the stretch is quite away, but we have 35 different schools and 2 hospitals. And we just heard a little while ago from county officials that it's those medical areas, it's those hospitals that are a real challenge sometimes, especially when you have to evacuate large numbers of people. Want to send it back into the newsroom because Mark Dembski's got an update for us on some other effects of these evacuations. Mark.
Yeah, good evening, Joe. Good evening, Nikki. A lot of this information it bears worth repeating, but I did just get a piece of information into the newsroom that the Butte County Jail is being evacuated out of concern and caution, obviously. I am told that this is according to the Butte County Sheriff's Department. They are transporting the inmates to other nearby jail facilities at this time. Again, the Butte County Jail is being evacuated as we speak, and inmates being transferred to nearby jail facilities at this time. Now, we did want to mention that, again, according to the Associated Press, the latest numbers that we have, we've talked to a lot of people that are on their way out of town, but according to the AP, 130,000 people evacuated at this time. Getting lots of calls to the newsroom from our Placer County friends in Roseville, Rockland, Lincoln, you name it. Right now, at this time, there is no evacuation orders for Placer County at this time. Joe did mention a while ago that the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds, about 40 minutes ago, was reported to be full. That is in Chico. So some of the other evacuation centers that you can go to, again, the Nevada County Fairgrounds is taking on both RVs and animals as well. You access through Gate 4. Again, that's the Nevada County Fairgrounds. And at 7:30 tonight, a shelter opened up in Orland at the Glenn County Fairgrounds. Again, that is the address is 221 East Yolo Street in Orland. Again, the Glenn County Fairgrounds. So a lot of information to pass along, but the latest that we have here in the newsroom, Joe and Nikki, that the Butte County Jail is being evacuated and inmates being taken to other jail facilities.
All right, Mark, thank you. And for a full list of the areas that have already been evacuated and evacuation centers where you need to go if you need to find some refuge, you can go to our website at fox40.com. I know this is a lot of information, but all of it is there if you need to double check it.
And I know we've been talking about this a lot, especially you and Dennis. We're talking about the spillway here, not the dam. Caltrans, DWR, they've been putting a lot of posts on social media trying to clear that up. And Dennis, I know that you are going to kind of take us through what we're talking about, the area that they're focusing on.
That's right, Nikki, because I think it's just as important to address a lot of the misinformation that's out there as it is to give the information that's correct. Misinformation we've heard and seen on Twitter is that the dam itself is in danger. That's the dam itself you're looking at. That is not in danger. Nobody's saying anything about the dam itself, and nobody's saying anything about a failure of a dam or spillway. The failure has not happened. It is a concern about a failure of the spillway that has prompted the evacuation orders. Okay, what you're looking at right there in the center, that is the emergency spillway where chunks of concrete did break away earlier in the week, and they have had to curtail some of the flows down that because of that damage. So the auxiliary spillway for the first time ever was put into place, and all that is this cement dam looking structure that you see to the left of the controlled spillway, and the water flows over that emergency spillway. It's designed to do that when the lake literally overflows and they can't use that concrete spillway. So the water flows down through all of this wildland into the Feather River as it has been doing over the past several days. But that has caused, as you can imagine, you see all the dirt involved here, that has caused some erosion. And in the words of the Department of Water Resources, the operation of the emergency spillway has led to severe erosion that could lead to a failure of the structure. When we talk about a failure of the structure, it is that cement structure, and so the underlying earth has been compromised that supports it. And so if that concrete structure were to fail, that's when you'd have an uncontrolled release of water out of this lake, which has gone from 80% full full to overflowing in less than a week because of all the heavy rain and runoff. So they had to increase releases down the damaged spillway where chunks of concrete fell off. They had to increase those to 100,000 cubic feet per second today, even though it's damaged and water is flowing all around the spillway. But that was a better measure than letting a continuous push of uncontrolled water further erode the earth around the auxiliary spillway, which is where the concern is tonight, in addition to the damaged spillway itself. Nikki and Joe.
All right, Dennis, thanks. And we just learned a few minutes ago that Department of Water Resources is going to be having a press conference at 9 o'clock. So in about a half an hour from now, we'll get you the latest information. Of course, we'll carry that live for you.
Yeah, new information that's coming. Now, just to give you a quick recap again, if you are just joining us, this situation happened earlier today. We got the alert around 4:30. Actually, I think we're going to go live right now to Bendisi, or at least getting a live look at the Oroville Dam. What you're seeing right now is actually the plan to try to stop some of that water. And what we were described earlier was that you see those boulders right there. They are filling bags with those boulders, and at some point they're going to take those bags up in a helicopter over to the emergency spillway, to some of the more problematic areas, and they're going to try to plug some of those holes. That was the plan that we heard from a press conference earlier today from Butte County officials. I don't know if Bendisi can hear me right now. Producers can. Okay, so we're just getting a live look, but that's what you're seeing right there. And again, that is a massive, massive effort right there. No timetable yet on when that might happen, when they might actually start to take those bags. But I mean, you're looking at it right there. It's dozens, if not hundreds, of those bags being filled with boulders. We've got a number of workers that are there right now at the dam. This is sort of the center of where this is all happening. Ben, from that vantage point, could actually see the emergency spillway. Said that from what he saw, there were lights below that were still on. So had we been talking about worst case scenario here, where that water was flooding over that area onto those lights, we wouldn't have been able to see them. We heard earlier from emergency officials that they were, in fact, a little bit more hopeful later on, about 6 o'clock, when we heard from them, than they were earlier in the day when they were expecting that water to sort of overflow, or at least preparing for that to potentially happen. I want to send it over to Sarah Zenadam, who is live right now for us at the emergency office in Sacramento, the Cal Office of Emergency Services right now. Sarah, what are you hearing from them?
Well, Joe, not much has changed here at Cal OES. The State Operations Center is still obviously activated. Very, very active situation, very fluid situation here as well. You can see they're at full activation right now. That means all hands on deck for this situation. We're still waiting for that press conference. It's supposed to start somewhere around 9 o'clock, where we'll get a little bit more information about how Cal OES and other local, state, and federal representatives will move forward with this situation. Now, as I mentioned a little bit ago, during the January storms, there was activation here at this center as well, but it was about half of what you see right now. You can see just what a dire situation we're in, and obviously, as I said, all hands on deck here. And the last time they were at full activation was during the Napa earthquake just a couple of years ago. So right now, Cal OES tells us they're just in the information gathering stage. And once they get that information, then they'll figure out exactly what course of action to take. And like I said, 9 o'clock press conference is expected. And once we get some more information, we'll definitely relay it back to you guys. For now, at Cal OES, Sarah Zendanon, Fox 40 News.
Sarah, thanks so much. And we're keeping an eye on social media because that's where we're getting some updates. And we know that Beale Air Force Base just posted this not too long ago, saying it's supportive of local communities. Beale Air Force Base has authorized transit across the installation, entering via either the Doolittle Gate or the Schneider Gate and exiting to higher ground via the Grass Valley Gate. Additionally effective at 7:30, so that was an hour ago. An emergency shelter will be evacuated on base for those in need of support. So once again, less than an hour ago, Beale Air Force Base helping out with some additional shelter.
And we mentioned earlier, this is an absolute multi-agency effort right now. You have law enforcement officials, emergency officials from all over helping out. Just got word that Placer County is sending sheriff's deputies up to Oroville right now. They're en route to try to help people evacuate there. We're going to send it over to Christina now in the Weather Center, who's got some more updates for us. Christina.
Yeah, we're just going to recap again the flash flood warning that is in effect and will last until about about 4:15 tomorrow. I want to also update you on the Feather River. There's concerns, obviously, that we're going to see rises. So here's a look at the flash flood warning. You can see it's for all areas, obviously, to the south and to the west of Lake Oroville. The concerns are cities like Oroville, Biggs, Palermo, as you head towards Gridley. These are all the spots that they want people to get out and be safe. The Feather River right now, I was just looking at all of the graphs as far as where they would rise and do we have concerns of flooding. Right now, as we know, they've increased the outflow out of the dam to make sure that they can get some of this water down. Now, it looks like so far, even with the increase in strength of water that is starting to flow out, that the Feather River will be just fine at all the areas that we monitor. The Feather River can handle what they are putting out right now. However, the concern, as Dennis mentioned, is that auxiliary dam. If that happens, then we have an uncontrolled amount of water, and that's obviously going to cause rises in many areas that certainly would not be prepared. So right now, the Feather River looks just fine. The key is keeping the outflow at the number that they need it to be to keep everyone safe as you move downstream. So that's what we're really going to watch. Obviously, if this auxiliary dam goes, if we see that outflow of water that's uncontrollable, we are going to have a lot of problems, and it's going to be, yes, even very far downstream. It may take many hours for that to happen. You have to consider we'll see the immediate response in the areas closest, but still 9 to 10 hours later, we could well downstream as you head towards Palermo, as you head towards Gridley. That's when we would see those concerns, because obviously it's going to take some time for that water to build, but it will build, and then it will be more water, obviously, than the Feather River banks can handle. Guys.
You know, and we actually, right away at the beginning, around 4:30, when we got these alerts, they were talking about specific areas in Oroville, and it didn't take long for them to say, okay, if you're anywhere in Oroville at all, you need to be evacuated. So it's just hour by hour.
And areas downstream. And we've all been monitoring the social media. Sacramento PD. We saw just out of Natomas, Angelique Ashby, all of these areas. These people are monitoring right now. None of our areas specific to Sacramento, specific to Natomas, West Sacramento, not in any immediate threat. But you know that everyone is watching this. This is something we really have to, because even as we go through the next few hours, it's going to be slowly but surely, if something was to happen, that everyone would see that. So that's why we take this precaution, get everybody out as far as we can, and then hopefully hope for the best that they are, as Ben said, going to get this under control.
Pretty stunning, the images, too. Caltrans just tweeted out a pic not too long ago of the traffic very, very heavy on southbound 99 and Highway 70. People just trying to get out, and they're saying, please use caution. But we have Ben DC standing by right now at the dam with the latest from there. Ben.
Yeah, Nikki, you and Joe were talking about how many boulders had been loaded, how many bags have been loaded with those boulders. I want to show you behind me live right now. You can see just a massive number of bags loaded up with these boulders. Again, hopefully in support of this airlift operation to try to get some support, try to get this material into breaches in the area of the spillway. Just take a look at just the dozens and dozens of bags that have been loaded, and that operation is still ongoing. Now, the spillways are still in operation right now too, and you can see that just over the hill there through the trees. The lights are still on. That is a very, very good sign. Those lights are set up to shine on both the auxiliary spillway and the original spillway, both of which we now know have structural problems, are crumbling as the water rushes over them. But the fact that those lights are still visible to us, again, a very good sign. If the water had begun rushing in an uncontrolled way, if this dam had given, or the auxiliary spillway had given out, and to a degree that Department of Water Resources was concerned it might, you wouldn't be seeing those lights. Those lights very well could be underwater. But as we speak of lights, I want to take you over this way yet again for a look at the dam. Can't see it, can you? That's because the lights that have lined this dam and been on all evening long, just within the past couple of minutes, have gone dark. Now, we don't know if that's a bad sign, but it certainly is not helpful to crews who are making their way across this dam trying to check on its integrity as this scenario unfolds. Again, the lights on Oroville Dam have just a few minutes ago gone out.
All right, Ben, we'll continue. Yep, sorry, go ahead, Ben.
You can see at the very far end, that's the area where that truck with the yellow lights flashing, that's the area of concern here. That's where both the spillway and the emergency spillway are, and that's where the erosion is occurring as this water rushes out of Lake Oroville. And we could tell you just by looking, we have seen the level of the lake decrease. Now, that's a good thing as long as it's done slowly and steadily. The concern here is that water will begin pouring out rapidly in an uncontrolled fashion as that auxiliary